There are things happening on your flight that you're never told about. And honestly, if you knew all of them, you might never look at air travel the same way again. In the next few minutes, you'll discover the exact row that gives you the highest chance of walking away in an emergency, why some planes have a hidden compartment used to store bodies mid-flight, how chunks of frozen waste have crashed through rooftops, why pilots sometimes close their eyes for far longer than you'd expect, and more. These aren't travel tips you'll hear from an airline spokesperson. They're the realities of flying that most passengers never even think to ask about. And if you want to make sure you never get caught off guard at 35,000 feet, subscribe now, because missing these could cost more than just your comfort. It's rare, but it happens more often than most people imagine. Passengers passing away mid-flight. And when it does, the way airlines handle it is something you're never officially told. On long-haul routes, especially those over oceans where diversions aren't easy, flight crews are trained to manage the situation as quietly as possible to avoid panic. This could mean moving the passenger to an empty row in the back, covering them discreetly, and securing the area so other travelers don't notice. Some aircraft, like certain Airbus A340-500s that Singapore Airlines use for ultra-long-haul flights, were once rumored to have a designated corpse compartment, essentially a storage space large enough for a human body. The airline has never confirmed this, and aviation experts say it's more likely these spaces were adaptable crew rest areas or unused galley sections. Still, the myth persists because in cramped conditions at 35,000 feet, crew must improvise, and occasionally, those solutions look like something out of a mystery novel. Officially, airlines won't comment on the exact procedures, but here's the reality. Some carriers train crew to place the deceased in an area with the least passenger exposure, sometimes even in first class if it's the only discreet option. And the next time you see an unexpectedly empty seat in the premium cabin, you might find yourself wondering if it's really empty at all. Imagine looking out your window mid-flight and seeing chunks of solid blue ice hurtling toward the ground. You'd probably think it was just frost breaking away from the aircraft. In rare cases, it's not. Airliners can't dump waste midair, yet a tiny leak in the lavatory plumbing can escape into the frigid atmosphere outside. There, it freezes instantly into what's known as blue ice, a mix of human waste and disinfectant. Over the decades, 27 documented cases in the US show just how real this hazard is, with chunks occasionally smashing through roofs during descent. These frozen chunks cling to the fuselage until warmer air during descent causes them to break away. That's when gravity takes over. There have been documented cases of blue ice striking homes, cars, and even people. In the US, the FAA investigates such incidents, but they're so uncommon that most passengers and even frequent flyers have no idea this is a risk at all. Hidden behind the facades of everyday convenience is another quiet mystery: airplane bathroom doors. From the inside, they look like any locked door, but in an emergency, say someone is unresponsive in the lavatory, flight attendants can unlock the door from the outside using a small latch concealed behind the lavatory or no smoking sign. This feature is standard across Boeing and Airbus aircraft. The official reason? Safety, in case a passenger becomes ill, unresponsive, or needs assistance. But it also means that privacy on a plane isn't quite as private as you think. If you've never heard about this before, that's exactly why you should hit subscribe, because the airlines are certainly not going to warn you. They look harmless: a flock of geese gliding across the runway, a gull circling above the terminal. But in aviation, these birds can bring a multi-million-dollar machine to its knees. Every year in the United States, there are more than 13,000 bird strikes. Actual FAA-reported data exceeds 13,000 annually. Most occur during takeoff or landing, and when they do, the consequences can range from a dented nose cone to both engines failing, as famously happened with US Airways Flight 1549, which was forced to land on the Hudson River after striking multiple birds. Airports are well aware of this risk, and much of their surrounding landscape is intentionally designed to make it unwelcoming to birds. Grass is kept at a height that's too short for nesting, yet too tall to encourage foraging. Water sources are minimized. Ponds may be drained or covered to deter waterfowl. Less visible to passengers are the active deterrents: propane cannons that fire sudden blast to scatter flux, LED scarecrow eyes on poles that exploit avian instincts, and at certain rural airports, even pigs or trained dogs deployed to chase off geese and other wildlife. While bird strikes present a real hazard, lightning is significantly less dangerous than the movies suggest. Aircraft are engineered with conductive skins and static wicks designed to carry electrical charges safely around the airframe and direct them back into the atmosphere, meaning that passengers often remain completely unaware even when a strike occurs. And here's a detail few travelers know. Delays attributed to bird strikes are commonly reported under general terms like technical inspection or operational delay. This isn't about hiding a threat, it's about preventing alarm and avoiding a flurry of follow-up questions about how close your aircraft came to meeting a large bird on the runway. Imagine the person flying your plane hasn't slept more than 4 hours. And yes, that happens. Not because they're careless, but because the human body doesn't always obey the airline schedule. Crossing time zones, late-night departures, early morning check-ins, it all stacks up. Fatigue in aviation isn't a vague concept. It's measurable, and it's regulated because the margin for error at 35,000 feet is razor thin. Hidden from passengers deep inside the aircraft's fuselage or tucked just above the cabin ceiling are the crew rest compartments. They're narrow, windowless rooms with bunks, reading lights, and seatbelt straps for turbulence. Most travelers never see them because they're accessed through unmarked doors or stairways that blend into a galley or a bulkhead panel. On long-haul flights, pilots and flight attendants work in rotation. While one pilot flies, another rests. A relief crew might join for ultra-long-range routes, ensuring someone is always alert at the controls. But here's the real-world trade-off. Rest breaks in these compartments aren't the same as sleeping at home. Noise from engines hum constantly, air pressure feels subtly different, and the body clock is often completely misaligned with the local time. That's where trust and teamwork come in. Commercial aviation runs on the understanding that your safety isn't in the hands of one individual. It's shared across a crew trained to monitor each other's alertness, back each other up, and step in if fatigue starts to show. The systems are designed for redundancy, but the human factor is still critical. The next time your pilot's voice comes over the intercom, remember, they might have just stepped out of a hidden room above your head, emerging from a few hours of sleep in a space most passengers don't even know exists.
Not every pilot can fly with every other pilot. Airlines maintain what's known as a do not pair list, an internal safeguard that keeps certain personalities out of the same cockpit. It's not about favoritism, it's about risk management. Two equally skilled aviators can still be a poor match if communication styles clash, if one tends to dominate decision-making, or if there's a history of unresolved conflict. In a high-pressure cockpit, those dynamics can erode teamwork in ways the passengers will never see, but could feel if a situation turns critical. Pairing rules are designed to ensure that the captain and first officer complement each other, balancing assertiveness with cooperation, quick thinking with measured judgment. Flight operations teams study schedules, personnel files, and incident reports to prevent combinations that could introduce unnecessary tension. For passengers, the takeaway is simple. Good pilot chemistry isn't just about a smoother working day for the crew, it's another layer of safety. Two pilots who trust each other, challenge each other constructively, and communicate without friction make better decisions when every second counts. So while you're fastening your seatbelt, someone behind the scenes has already made sure that the people in the cockpit can work together as a single, unified mind. Picture this, you're standing at the gate and they've just called your boarding group. Everyone rushes forward like the plane might leave without them. But here's the twist. Boarding early isn't always the smart move. In fact, if you value comfort, control, and even a little bit of privacy, sometimes the best seat in the game is in the waiting area, not in row 12. When you board last, or close to it, you spend less time breathing recycled air before takeoff. You can see exactly which seats are still open, and in some cases you can even switch to a better one. If the gate agent needs to reassign for balance or free upgrades, guess who's in the perfect position to benefit? The passenger still outside the jet bridge. But there's another reason to pause before rushing on. The codes printed on your boarding pass. Buried in those few lines of text is your PNR, passenger name record, a digital fingerprint of your trip. It contains your full itinerary, seat assignment, even notes airlines or security have added about you. And in some cases, you'll see 4 letters you do not want, SSSS. That stands for Secondary Security Screening Selection. It means you've been flagged for an extra layer of checks, usually at the security gate before boarding. You can't opt out, and it can add 15 to 30 minutes to your airport time. Why does it happen? Sometimes it's random. Other times it's triggered by last-minute one-way bookings, paying in cash, or travel patterns that match certain profiles. But here's the practical hack. Book round-trip tickets when possible. Use the same credit card you've flown with before, and check in online early. Often, the earlier your record is locked, the less chance it's altered by security algorithms. These boarding pass codes aren't secrets, they're printed in plain sight. Most passengers just never think to read them. If you'd rather not be one of those passengers, subscribe and comment with "Got it" so you remember. If you were boarding a plane right now, would you know which seat could literally save your life? Most passengers walk past it without a second thought, but the numbers tell a different story. In real crash data, your odds of survival can swing by over 40% just by where you sit. The rear third of the cabin has been studied for decades, and analysis from the FAA and crash investigators shows a survival rate around 68%, and in certain seat positions, it climbs even higher. The middle seat in that rear section is roughly 72%. It's not glamorous, there's no view and less legroom, but in a worst-case scenario, it consistently puts passengers in a better position to walk away. Now compare that to the front section near the cockpit. It's where many business travelers prefer to sit for convenience, but crash reports show survival rates dipping to the low 40s. The first few rows, especially on smaller aircraft, can take the full force of impact. If safety is your priority, the logic is simple. Choose a seat in the rear third of the plane, ideally a middle seat. It's not about paranoia, it's about knowing the data and making a choice most people never consider until it's too late. Ever wondered why airplane food tastes bland no matter how much salt or sauce they add? It's not just the catering. At cruising altitude, the cabin humidity drops to less than 12%, drier than most deserts, which numbs your taste buds and dries out your nasal passages, muting flavors. Then there's the constant engine roar. That low, steady noise doesn't just fill the background. Studies show it actually alters how your brain perceives sweetness and saltiness, making everything taste flatter. But there's a surprisingly simple fix. Put on a pair of noise-canceling headphones before your meal. By cutting the ambient noise, you restore part of your brain's ability to process flavor, and food can suddenly taste fresher, more seasoned, more like it should. Pilots, by the way, have their own unique approach. They're served different meals from each other to reduce the risk of both being affected by the same case of food poisoning. If you want a quick in-flight experiment, try the headphone trick on your next trip. Pay attention to how the flavors change, and then come back here to share what you noticed. If you're thinking about splurging for an upgrade, here's what's actually happening in the sky. First class is disappearing, while business class is stepping up, and much smarter flyers are paying attention. American Airlines, among several others, is phasing out first class on many long-haul routes and replacing it entirely with more business class suites, anticipating a 45% increase in premium seating by 2026. The reason? Travelers increasingly value spacious lie-flat seats and lounge access, benefits of business class, more than exclusive first-class perks. Across long-haul flights, first-class fares can be 2 to 4 times higher than business-class fares, yet now offer fewer additional benefits than before. Business-class seats, including newer lie-flat suites, have effectively absorbed many of the luxury features once exclusive to first class, making business class a far more cost-effective splurge. Analysts and savvy travelers point to the smarter value of investing in business class for comparable comfort without the exorbitant price tag. When flying long-haul, business class now delivers nearly every comfort once reserved for first class, like lie-flat seats, amenity kits, and lounge access, at a significantly lower cost. If you're budgeting your travel, upgrading to business class often gives you the best bang for your buck. Want tips on unlocking the best upgrades or when business class beats first class in value? I can build your next segment around that. If you've ever stared at an airplane window and noticed that tiny hole at the bottom of the inner pane, you might have assumed it was a flaw. It's not. It's called a bleed hole, and it quietly keeps the window from fogging up while balancing the pressure between the cabin and the space between the window panes. Look a little further and you'll see small black triangles above certain rows. These aren't random markings. They guide crew to the windows with the clearest view of the wings for quick visual checks during inspections. Even the chimes you hear mid-flight are more than just polite signals. They're coded messages, short tones, long tones, and sequences used to communicate everything from turbulence warnings to service updates without announcing it over the loudspeaker. Once you know these details, every flight becomes a different experience. You're no longer just a passenger. You're an observer with access to the subtle language and design choices that keep the aircraft running smoothly and safely. The more you understand about flying, the less powerless you feel suspended in the sky at 35,000 feet. What most passengers experience as background noise, small details, and unexplained moments, you now recognize as part of a complex system built to keep you safe, comfortable, and moving forward. And this is only the beginning. If you click away now without subscribing, the next time you fly, you'll be surrounded by people who have no idea what's really happening around them, and you'll be right back in the dark with them. So stay ahead, be the passenger who sees what others miss. And before you go, tell me in the comments the weirdest flight experience you've ever had. The most unusual stories might just make it into the next episode.